Welcome to the Longest Take podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Longest Take podcast. In today's episode, I am joined by TrisRex. TrisRex is a Chicago-based filmmaker, creature designer, and practical FX artist, known for creating movie-quality monsters and foam-fabricated armor. He is the founder of TrisRex Studio, where he produces horror-infused projects and large-scale props. You may have seen some of his work at C2E2, the Chicago-based Comic-Con, where he has a huge display out there on the floor where he represents his Alien Empress, which is a massive, larger-than-life creature creation that has been a standout attraction at C2E2 since 2023. You may have also caught some of his DC Comics cosplay, such as Swamp Thing, Red Lantern, Lord Atrocitus, and even a really cool-looking Batman armor. But his magnum opus is a 40-minute film he released, and it's on YouTube called Aliens Resurgence for the Hive, which is an incredible use of his not only creature and monster design, but set design using miniatures. A very inventive and creative film within the Alien universe. And he's following it up with yet another one later this year, so please be on the lookout for that. Please welcome TrisRex to today's episode. So, first things first, what are your top 5 favorite movies?
Now, you know, this is a hard one, man. This is a hard one, but Alien, of course, that goes without saying. Jurassic Park. My last name is Rex for a reason. Blade Runner, the original. 7, and then the Batman from 2022. And those have been my favorites for the past, I want to say 5-7 years. Some of those, because of the project that we're Resurgence just wrapping up, a lot of those have a lot of similarities to some of the things I wanted to do. But also, just films I like to watch just for comfort. Like, I could just hop into those at any point in time, no matter where it is. If it's playing on TV or something, or I could just hop up in there and have a good time with it. So that's my 5. But if you ask me, next week, it might change. Right. It might change. But yeah, it's a good 3 or 4 of those that's staying in there, though.
Yeah, and I like what you said about comfort movies, because I feel the same way about a lot of stuff that I like. What about those, specifically? Is it because, like you said, you create, I've seen you make Batman related things. Obviously you've got your Alien stuff. Jurassic Park is a huge special effects masterpiece with what they did with that. Is that kind of the connective tissue between all of them? Is that it taps into that creative side of your head that you like to apply in your art?
Well, I mean, when you look at them across the board, they're very different but very similar when it comes to who I am as a person and my personality and demeanor, I guess you could say. And Jurassic Park was the genesis, right? Because that was the first time I realized that making dinosaurs and aliens was actually a job. So I saw this special on ABC, and it was the making of Jurassic Park. I think it was an hour long with commercials and stuff. And when I actually saw that there were people in the sick Triceratops that was, making the mouth and the eyes move and doing the breathing in the stomach, that's when everything clicked for me. That's when everything started to make sense. And it even changed, and looking back, it even changed the way I play with my toys. Because now, every time I'm playing with my Jurassic Park toys and my Alien toys, I'm literally reenacting my favorite scenes or making things up that could be in the movie, So I would get the whole play set, and I would use my bed as a bridge, and I'd have the Jeep being knocked over off the bed by the T-Rex and things of that nature. Or with Aliens, I recreate the shootout or the Queen standoff. Um, yeah, so and that's a lot of the things I do now as a monster and filmmaker, which is just like relying on like would little Triss like this? Is this toyetic? Does this feel like a video game or a comic book or something that you would have liked when you were a kid? And I lean on that a lot to kind of like tell me what's what as the internal barometer to make sure I'm staying true to myself, you know. But that was the genesis, first Aliens, the Queen, um, the Queen Hive entrance part when you first see her and she's coming out. That's what really got me into monsters outside of dinosaurs. But then once I saw Jurassic Park, my first theatrical experience, the marketing, everything around it, I was gone. It was no turning back after that.
That's yeah.
No turning back, man.
I love that. I wish I caught that ABC special. It's probably available somewhere. I'm sure there's several hundred videos on the making of Jurassic Park now, but I could see how that could be an inspiring situation too. So from there, when was like the first time that you really like made your own monster? I guess you could say like you really started that SFX type work.
Yeah, like I make my own. Thinking about it that way, as far as like a traditional monster, right? The first time I created a monster was when 2019, 2020 Swamp Thing, the green, that cosplay that I made. Um that was the first time, and it felt like it was long overdue. Mainly because if you look at some of my earlier armors and things of that nature, a lot of the things had like huge shoulders, big hands and forearms, and different type of things that kind of went away from the anthropomorphic or human body, right? So I would say making Swamp Thing the green was probably the most freeing thing that I've done, and it kind of like, well, as I was making it, I kind of felt like, okay, everything is making sense now. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because a lot of the things that I felt were sometimes, I don't want to say boring, or sometimes not as cool to make. If you're making something that's, rusted metal, things of that nature, it's fun. But for me, being a nature nut, I always like to make things that are alive, that I feel that are organic, sentient, something that's a part of something else, or things of that nature. So you'll see a lot of back then I had like the big humpback, the big the vine, just like where you would see the striations and veins in the muscles. Those were like mossy and things of that nature. And that was the first time I really felt free, because it was my own interpretation of it too. I didn't make Swamp Thing, right? But the green was my kind of like my stamp on it, and they got a lot of people into Swamp Thing too, which is what I was surprised. I thought everybody knew about Swamp Thing, but that's just me being me, right? But yeah, that was the first time, and I never been like, I've gotten like, I had some standouts before, right? But this was something new. This was something new, and I felt like it was my kind of like my stamp in the cosplay world at the time. If you look back at it, that's the one I was like mostly known for until I started pumping them out over COVID and stuff.
Nice, yeah, and kind of connected to this next point. A lot of what you do outside of Aliens that I see, like it, at the Hall of Horrors or whatever, is DC, and you've got Batman, Man Bat, Lord Atrocitus, and Swamp Thing even, is technically a DC property. So with like your love and interest in this area of comics, I guess you could say, Do you plan on ever doing like a fan film type project for something DC related?
You know what? Early on, I was thinking about it, but I didn't love it enough. It was gonna be, that whole lineup is called "Justice is a Monster," right? And it was really just focusing on like some of the more creature-like villains and heroes from the DC Comics line, and it was highly inspired by Justice League Dark. And I was thinking about it, but I just didn't love it enough to fully commit to it. So when I was thinking, when I made up my mind, I was like, the next universe that I do make, right? I am going to make a film or a scene to go along with it. Remember, it started off as a scene, and then I was teeter-tottering between Resident Evil and Alien, or Alien versus Predator, and then I just boiled it down to Aliens, right? And I was thinking to myself, do we really need another Resident Evil movie at this point? But one of the things that I did think we needed was more Alien, because just for y'all listening out there, this was like 2019. This was like 2020 when I first really like got the idea to do it, and then I started writing in late 2020, and started making things around 2021. So this was way before Alien Romulus, Alien Earth. All you had was a few of the shorts that were on the Alien Anthology, YouTube. And then you just had the comics, toys, and video games and podcasts like Perfect Organism. So there was nothing in the horizon coming. So I really was like, okay, this is what we need, which is why I called it Resurgence, because we back, right? And that's when, I just wanted to really like lean into making a version, telling my own story, right? Because it's a very personal story, very psychological, very dark, but mixed into that aliens universe that's so vast and rich when you look across other mediums of art and platforms out there, because they go so far and so deep into the lore, that it probably it's probably wouldn't work on screen, but some of the stuff that I think could work, that I'm drawing from a lot of comic books and things, you will see in my work, whether it be like some of the my attractions with the displays and stuff, or in the film. The film is very dark horse James Cameron like.
Yeah, and
So that's a long way of saying no.
Right, yeah.
That's a long way of saying no to DC Comics, but yes to Aliens, because that's my heart.
Yeah, no, and I definitely I could definitely see it. There's a lot of care that you put into the film and just the work that you do in general. I'm curious though, what like did you get far enough with thinking about Resident Evil where you know what you would have done if you went through with that? Like what would have you had for that?
Yes. First the creatures, okay. So the creatures were the hunter from Resident Evil 1, the liquor, and Nemesis. And I was gonna have it in Raccoon City, with Chicago being a backdrop for it, which is kind of funny because a lot of people always like joke that Raccoon City is Chicago. But that was going to be the major villains, and I probably was gonna have like some original folks come in there that kind of like made you think of Jill and Carlos, or like Chris. But it was gonna be one of those escape from Raccoon City type of scenes, or type of short fan films, and it was gonna be a really quick one. I wasn't really gonna lean in too heavy on the storyline and things of that nature. But a lot of the things that I was gonna do with that film actually, that project actually made its way to my original that I'm working on now. So Yeah, I'm glad I didn't do it because now I got something even better, and I don't have the I don't want to say constraints, but
You could
yeah,
sell it if you
constraints.
wanted to, right? Because it's an original project,
Yeah,
so you're not like,
it's a, yeah. I could be free with it. I could be free because Capcom, Resident Evil, that's his own sandbox. Same thing with Disney and Aliens, right? But you want to play in those sandboxes and be respectful. But now, just like with the original creature that you saw at the Hall of Horrors, the big lizard guy, you could kind of
yeah.
tell that was just me unleashed. Just my own sandbox, no constraints, just me having going at it. And that's one of the things that I look forward to.
So is that lizard then going to be in your original that you're putting together?
He's actually going to be part of another film, shooting down in Memphis. It's a sci-fi film. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. I'm gonna be shipping him down there soon.
Yeah, that'll be dope. Get to put it into something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. And would have like if there was that alternate universe where you followed through on this Resident Evil thing, would have that meant like you would have still had that place at C2E2, but instead of like that alien setup, it would have been like a Raccoon City thing, right?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
I like the
Yeah.
alien thing better because I'm a sci-fi guy in general, and that's like the sweet spot is that sci-fi horror with alien in the franchise. But
I think I think we made the right choice, or I made the right choice, right?
yeah,
And it was one of those things where the universe just helped me out, and they came back with actual alien films and stuff. Tristan's MacBook Air. I'm
yeah.
sorry about that. We're not connecting. We're not connecting. I'm sorry, Siri. Excuse that. But yes, that was the right choice. And I always like to, if I'm gonna make a new universe, I always, not just make it a film, but also make it other things where people can interact with it too. Without spoiling stuff. But that's the hard part.
Yeah, right. That's always the hard part. Um, Speaking of Alien Resurgence, where are we at currently with the follow-up that I assume still plan on
So,
doing, right?
yeah, yeah. The follow-up, I'm still jotting some stuff down. I'm still tweaking some things, but the follow-up is needed because there's a lot I still want to say. And I never, the way I like to tell my stories is I like the intersecting storylines, kind of like what Zach Kreger did with Weapons. Like it's one big story, but you seen it from different points of view, and it all comes together at the end. Or for the video game people, right? Since we were talking about Resident Evil, if you play the Resident Evil 2 remake and then you play the Resident Evil 3 remake, you could tell that these are like intersecting storylines where if they were there, just an hour ago, they could have like bumped into each other, Jill and like Leon or something. So it's gonna be one of those type of things that kind of like you put this part with this part and you put it together and you got one big like super cut or one big story. So everything makes sense. But I made it mysterious for a reason. Because mainly I don't like being spoon fed things as a audience member as well as an artist. I want you to think for yourself. There's some things that I'm okay if you don't understand it because I don't understand life as well. And it's just a reflection of me and what I'm going through. And one of the things that I like best is when writers and directors give the audience room to make their own speculation about what happened. Kind of when you playing a video game and all of a sudden it's on you to decide how the story ends, and it's like you gotta go left or gotta go right. So that it was very game inspired with how I created this film and this universe, which only makes sense because I like to play games, you know.
Yeah, right. And I should have asked this earlier, but if you were able to pick like your 5 favorite video games of all time, what would you say?
Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4, um, Metal Gear Solid 1 for PlayStation. That's the fourth one. Five. Five, I'm gonna just say Mortal Kombat, like the Mortal Kombat world in general. But as you can see, my heart is with Resident Evil.
Yeah.
That's my sweet spot. It just hits me in here, man. Hits me in the heart.
Yeah, did you play 9 yet?
Oh yeah, I played it a couple times. It's a great story. It's a really cool story, and it felt personal for me because I've been playing since 1996. So seeing how the story progressed with Leon and things of that nature, I had a sense of pride in that. But Resident Evil 9 is a game changer.
Yeah.
This is going to change the way AAA games are handled and the way like people get feedback and things of that nature, because I felt like this was almost like an apology from Capcom. Like, yeah, we missed the mark on these other titles, Resident Evil titles, but this is what you've been asking for, and this is what we want to present to you. And yeah, that was one hell of a story.
Yeah, and I like how, I mean, it did bring us back to what we wanted, especially bringing Leon back, but it even like maintained a little bit of what worked with 7 and 8 in terms of having the first person stuff, the more creepy stuff. So they like married the 7 and 8 first person perspective and, Resident Evil 4, that awesome, third person story. Yeah, it literally was like the best of both worlds and they slapped it together. I thought that was pretty awesome with it. And it looked immaculate too. It was an incredible looking game.
Chef Kiss. Chef Kiss. It inspired a lot of this original too.
Yeah, and that's, I was thinking that when you said that, what you were planning for your Resident Evil short and how it kind of turned into your original. I would love to know if there's anything more you could give about that. Like, is it a zombie thing? Is it like a creature feature? Like, is there any information you could give about it?
Well, it wouldn't be TrisRex if it's not a creature feature, right?
Right.
I'll leave you with this, right? Take this however you want to take it. You got 7 eats Resident Evil, eats The Wire from HBO. That's all I can give you right now.
Oh, hell yeah. The Wire is one of the greatest shows of all time.
One of the greatest shows of all time. Shout out to Michael B. Jordan, Idris Elba. It's a lot of legends that came from that show too. But when I say The Wire, the political aspect, the dirty cops, how that plays out in the community, neighborhoods, things of that nature.
Oh, very awesome.
So that's the 3. That's the 3.
Yeah.
And I know you're probably like, what the fuck is he talking about? But trust me. Just trust me. I got you.
Yeah. No, the inspirations sound great. That's an awesome combination. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that when more comes out about it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, obviously we've got Alien Resurgence and this follow-up. But with the first one, what were some of the biggest limitations, that you faced with the first? And how do you plan on like potentially addressing that in the follow-up?
Everything was a limitation because it was just lack of experience. It's my very first film or anything over 20 seconds, like literally. And I addressed a lot of it with some reshoots. But because I could show you like some before and after when I was just test shooting and things of that nature. And it's like, oh, I could tell what you were trying to do. And you almost had it, but I could tell that you really got to it. You know what I'm saying? So just like with anything else, us artists are always, it's like, are we really done? Or is that just when you got to turn it in? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that I am going to be addressing, mainly around not necessarily what you see on camera, it's like scheduling and things of that nature, right? But there is some cool rigs and things that I figured out how to make with the lack of space. You know, I'll probably say that's the biggest limitation, right? But now that I figured out how to MacGyver, you know, look small spaces and really play with depth to make it look huge, or miniatures, right? Miniatures is a huge part of Resurgence, and it's only right because it was a part of Alien too, you know. And now I got some cool ideas as far as like extra rigging for the xenomorphs and things of that nature. Because the first one, right, I really wanted to play with fear. That was my first for this one. Fear was the name of the game. You know, yes, I got the creatures and all the other stuff, and I could do the action. You already know that, but I really wanted to play with fear and suspense with this one because I think that's what people probably weren't expecting it to. You probably think, you know, okay, it's TrisRex is gonna be guns blazing, huge xenomorphs, but you know, going at it from that angle was one of the things that I really wanted to lean on. But this next one is yeah, this is where things really truly unleash. So a lot of those limitations as far as like that I dealt with, which is like everything across the board, right? Because you're as the story progresses, you're literally seeing me figure it out and watch and learning. And my wife was like, she was joking with me like, "This is your first film, but this is also like film school to you as well because you have to learn everything." And she's right because every chapter, every scene, every step of the way was my first time. But leaning on like some of the things that we talked about at the Q&A, like being a really good project manager, how to direct people, think all this other stuff, you know, that's what I leaned on for the organizational part. And that's one of the things that really drove it home. But now that I actually know how to, you know, handle all of the film stuff, you know, getting the cameras ready, lenses, all of the extra prep, literally like being like 20 people in one body. Like now that I know what comes with all of that, I know how to prepare for it, I feel much more confident. And there is some scenes in Resurgence, the first one, that I probably end up taking another stab at because you just, you know, now that you know better, right? And you create things to create things. So there is going to be a director's cut with me sitting on the side of the screen drinking coffee and, you know, my comments here and there, or maybe not. But there's going to be this director's cut / super cut that's coming out. And I think it's going to be really cool. I know it's going to be really cool. I think people will really appreciate it.
Yeah, getting a glimpse into that behind the scenes stuff I think is always, you know, phenomenal, and I love that element of it, which is why what I do is I ask filmmakers about what they do because, you know, the process fascinates me. So I think you had mentioned this, but Alien Resurgence, was that film just all on iPhone?
iPhone 13,
Yeah.
right here.
Do you plan on
iPhone.
like upgrading to like, you know, actual potentially like, you know, cinema style cameras for the follow-up or even for your original film?
For the follow-up, no, I'm gonna shoot that on the 17. But for my original film, for the freedom, you know, I am going to bump it up and do a traditional movie style camera, maybe, because I'm getting really good with this iPhone and small rig and newer keeps coming out with all of this new stuff that is that kind of could rival it, you know. And if you want an example, 28 days, that last 28 days later movie, the 1 second before last, right?
Yeah.
That one was shot all on iPhone 17. So it's like I don't ever see myself just using one camera. Cause that's just like me just using a drill to try to, you need saws, you need glue guns, staplers, and everything else, right? So you're gonna see me use iPhones, traditional camera, a GoPro, anything that needs to be, it depends on what the need is. So I don't necessarily feel that I'm ever going to use just one tool to get the job done. I think it's going to be a myriad of tools. But with all of the cool little rigs that I built for the iPhone, even if I do go like and get like a red or something, right? I'm still going to use the mobile camera as much as possible, or when it permits.
Right. Yeah, and the cool thing about Reds, and I think even you could get RE Alexas, you could rent them through like something like Lens Rental, and I think that that's made it really accessible for people that you can't shell out like $10,000 for something, and you can always rent it. But it's funny how something like an iPhone can capture that cinematic quality. Technology has come such a far way that you're able to get what you need with just that, instead of like trying to get this new camera, get a new rig for that camera, get the proper sound attachments, because all that adds up. But with the iPhone, it's a lot more compact, and it's really fascinating just what you're able to do with it. And with what they did with 28 years later, the stuff that they made to make it work with all the iPhones is insane.
Yep.
Like the Halo rig.
That's what it's about.
It's like the 20 iPhones or whatever. That was so cool. I love that. That's where it's awesome with filmmaking. Just that creativity and the inventiveness with that.
Right. And it's just one of those things where it just goes to show like what is the actual excuse nowadays? Because when you look at some of these Samsung, these iPhone cameras, right? I see a lot of people on YouTube that do tests, and a lot of the times the iPhone or the mobile camera is beating some of these Sonys and Reds and these other things. But at the end of the day, I think we all could agree it depends on who's shooting, the experience, the eye. You give Roger Deakins an iPhone or Greg Frazier an iPhone, right? And you give the average Joe from the block or from the neighborhood an IMAX camera. Who you think is going to take the best shot?
Deakins and Fraser, for sure.
Exactly. It's all in the eye. It's all in the eye. But yeah, I never see myself just using one camera though. Yeah, I'm gonna throw everything I got at it.
Yeah, and it definitely, it all matters with what you want to do. That's exactly it. And whatever it takes for you to get that. Sometimes it might just take the iPhone. Sometimes it might take a collection of things. It's just great being able to have that decision. And I know you kind of alluded to this talking about the original film. So I'll try to twist this question to something a little different. If you had like an unlimited budget, it'll be two-sided. So if you had just an unlimited budget, you can make anything in the world you wanted to. What would you make for like a presentation at like C2E2 or whatever, like a block or booth over there? And then what kind of movie would you want to make if you just had unlimited funds?
If I had unlimited funds, what I would do first for the display, I would build out the full Alien Hive with all of the set decor that you see on my queen. Like the year before last, you saw she had like this throne and things of that nature. I would build out exactly what I did for the miniatures in Resurgence, live scale, and cover the top of it, make it like a big dome. So when you walk in it, everything is dark, so it could be like a full-on like universal attraction, but with aliens. But I don't think that has much to do with budget. I think that's more to do with time, right?
Right.
But If I had the budget, I would get the space to flesh out the sets that I wanted to do for Resurgence, get a team so I could direct them, build it out fully, reshoot Resurgence, and it's next one is one big full movie, and pay all my friends.
Right, yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah, because now it's not it's not necessarily about just budget. Right now, it's more so about like timing and opportunity.
And space too, right?
Um,
Having
and space.
having the space for it.
Yeah, in space. So just creating stuff to create stuff. If anything, most of that budget would just go to space, to be honest with you. Because I've proven a lot over the years, but one of the things that always, comes up with me is just space because I like to create in that kid way. They things big,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Don't hold back. Just flesh it out. So that's what I would do. I will recreate my Aliens Resurgence, my own budget. Same cast. I would just have more time to allocate to everybody, and I would pay them. I want to see my friends and family do well.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. Um, yeah, I think that would also pay off really, really well. And shit, I mean, you'll be able to do that in your own way, just as you make more things and work on your original, and even as you fine tune like this follow up to Resurgence, and how that kind of how everything intersects as you get those things finished. I think that'll be really great. Your display at C2E2 has been a staple for the last couple times that I've gone personally. I think it might have been a couple years ago when I first noticed it, because it's massive and it's incredibly impressive because you've got such great designs there. When did this relationship with the convention circuit start? And like, where do you plan to go from here? And are there other conventions that you do? Because I'm only familiar with you at C2E2.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I take pride in being able to, build out my attractions for everybody to enjoy. But I started, you know, actually I was a competitor at the Crown Championship. And then I started judging. And when I was judging, I was offered a booth space. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. And then I was like, you know what, why not? And it worked out so well as far as like just being able to display something different. This was before, you go nowadays, right? And you see a lot of more horror and sci-fi related cosplays on the floor. But back in the day, it wasn't necessarily like that. And I'm talking about back in the day, just as like 2021, 2022, which was not too much long ago when you think about things from a macro perspective. So I this was like, hey, I'm making this cool alien, and I think people would really like it, but I just need a little bit more space. And they were cool enough to give me a shot. I had a working relationship with them as well because I judged for 2 years. Was a competitor, and they always treat. It was always the mutual, appreciation for one another. And they gave me a shot one year, and I was like, you know what? I got this queen I want to do for the film. I'm gonna bring this queen up there, and this is how I'm gonna let people know about the film. And holy shit, people lost their minds over that first display. And and then over the years, I started to add more. There's more stuff I was building, more the set pieces. And one of the really cool parts is, my friends and family that's able to help out to bring it to life. Because it's one thing just to have like the aliens up there and all of their glory, right? But having my, friends and family, and a lot of those are cast members too. Some of the whaling workers and things of that nature. But that's what truly makes it an attraction and a full-on experience. and that's one of the cool parts. As far as other conventions, I do try to be, on the move. I be a small man. I did Planet Comic Con and Days of the Dead in the Burbs as well, but because of the size of my creations, it's just a little bit hard. So I'm glad that I got the little chest bursters, face huggers, and things of that nature. But I'm actually gonna make like a little travel pack as far as like a xenomorph head and things that's a little bit more travel friendly because as of right now the reason why you're gonna see them coming out to play more is because logistics,
Yeah.
logistics. And then I'm gonna keep it a buck. C2E2 is 15 minutes away from the house. So they have a huge unfair advantage. The long lasting relationship and me becoming friends with and they keep the family, excuse me, they treat my friends and family right as a team. They show them love, just as much love as they show me. And the fact that they like, that's my home. First is the hometown, and then it's just so close. It's like it was an alley oop. So it was yeah, one of the probably one of the best partnerships that I've cultivated and like stumbled upon, And I hope that this could show other conventions that hey, uh horror and sci-fi is a bit cool. We never left. We just got silenced a little bit, but if you look at the Oscars, we back, baby.
Yep.
We back. We are not playing. And people gotta know that this is what built Hollywood. The mummies, the Frankensteins, the Draculas. That's what built Tinseltown, baby. Monsters, the Universal monsters. So it coming back to kind of save cinema is very poetic at the same time.
Yeah, no, and I definitely love that. And C2E2 does look. It seems like it's a really great place to have that partnership with. It's massive. It's literally the Comic Con of Illinois. I think it's the same company, right? Who does San Diego Comic Con? It's like
No, so Reed Pop does New York Comic Con, Florida SuperCon, Star Wars Celebration, and Emerald City Comic Con.
Oh, okay.
And I think they got some other ones too, but the big two is Chicago and New York Comic Con. And those two, mainly because C2E2 is actually, I wouldn't just say like the Illinois Comic Con, right? Because a lot of those people that you see, some of those people aren't from the country. Aren't even,
Right.
it's a global attraction.
Yeah.
So that's one of because of the crown and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So it's really become like a global. I refer to it as like a global cosplay Super Bowl, where it's like the best of the best come to duke it out on one stage, and it's cool because when you say see two in cosplay, that's where you're gonna see the best of the best, man. You gotta come with your A game. You gotta come with your A game if you're gonna compete. Cause you're gonna see some stuff, man.
Yeah, and I love that thought too. Because I've never been as well tuned into like the cosplay world, so I think it's really cool that Chicago's that important. It's imperative for the cosplay competition, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, you get the best of the best. So I think that that's a really cool element that I haven't personally thought about too much because I'm not as like vested in that piece of it, but that's super awesome. There's so many incredible
Mhm.
artists out there doing the cosplay thing, and I think that that's really really fascinating.
But I forgot the one other thing that you asked, where it's gonna go. Um, I'm with the follow up of Resurgence, there's gonna be a whole new kind of display, a whole new kind of attraction, whole new kind of experience. You're also gonna see more things that's gonna more peripheral showcases like the Hall of Horrors, which was cool as hell. and also more screenings and things of that nature. So just trying to like have something on each floor for people to enjoy. So I think this past year was pretty much like a good reflection of what the future has to offer for myself in C2E2.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to that. You're definitely a reason to return to C2E2 whenever you got something going on. So,
Hey man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I've been one of the pride in Chicago for the past some time now, and a little bit of time. But yes, I truly appreciate that. Trying to bring folks in, and just to hear that is crazy. Like you came here to see me, my weird ass. Like, oh
yeah.
shit, it's cool. It's a very cool and very very good and warm feeling. But I'm also honored too because some of the kind words and some of the things that even was said to me, this past week, it's like, y'all trying our best to make me cry. I'm not doing it. I'm staying gangster.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some of the things that was touching the heartstrings and man, because as a filmmaker, like I think for me, this is the most honest and vulnerable I've ever been. You know, if you know me and if you know some of the things I've gone through, there's a lot of things in Resurgence. It's like this ain't got shit to do with aliens. This is a confessional. You know what I'm saying? It's packaged as an alien film, but this is a very personal and psychological story, which is POV driven. And the best way I could tell it is through the world of aliens, which is why I chose to do it that way when I finally decided aliens over Resident Evil. But this is, filmmaking is how I could fully tell you what I'm feeling. Because before, I would tell the story through the creature or the armor. Why the metal is rusted, why the resin looks like it's falling off the xenomorph, or why it's high material everywhere. But in the film, I'm finally able to just really just show you or tell you.
Right.
So this is the most free I've felt creatively. You know what I'm saying? Because now it's just like taking the shackles off, and I could tell you everything that I can't say. But on film, I could give you my whole heart.
Yeah, no, I think that's really awesome too, and it makes me want to bring up something that you had mentioned in the Q&A, I think to somebody else's question, but you said monsters are relative, right? I think that was your quote. Would you want to just give a little bit more information on that quote? Because I really love that quote. I think that's a great quote too. It's true though. Monsters are relative, right?
Monsters are relative to whoever is depicting or describing what this being is, right? Because one of the things that's so cool about me making monsters is that my imagination goes way beyond the human body, which is why at a certain point making armors and things that humans would traditionally wear just got really boring to me. And I never really felt fully human because my, connection to nature and I got a lot of lizards, reptiles, and things of that nature. So I just don't want to be in the human body at times, and I think it shows. And the reason why I say monsters are relative because in my movie as well as the alien universe, uh, the xenomorphs are just the xenomorphs. Just like in Jurassic Park, the velociraptors are just the velociraptors. They're doing their thing. They're not good. They're not evil. They're pure. They're the highest form of what a thing could be in a sentient sense, right? But when you think about the actual monsters per se, you got to think of Asian and then like Wayland Yutani exploiting these creatures, exploiting people, taking them from Earth to work on these colonies as, indentured slaves, basically. There's no other way to say it. but it's one of those things that make you really question who the monster is. And one of the reasons why I left things so open ended and like and mysterious in certain ways, right, is because I really want you to question it. I really want you to question what the actual danger is, because my film is a very good description of that, of monsters being relatives. Because Cameron shows you, okay, so just to take it from like Boom Boom Pow, right? Alien in '79, they showed you space truckers. You knew they worked for a company. You only saw the output via mother. You know, you might have saw a logo here and there, but it was very faint. If you go in a chronological order, you start to see the actual, you know, industrial servitude side of Wayland Utani and Alien Romulus, you know. But the very first time you saw the face of you know, Wayland Utani as far as like a super company, right, was in Alien. And it was that cool part in the director's cut where you start to see like the kid that was on the big trike that was going, even the trike had Wayland Utani on it. Everything had Wayland Utani on it. And it wasn't done just because they wanted to label it. That was done to say, this is their world. They own everything. And if you ever work for a big, powerful company, which I have, you know that signature, you know, brand signature and things of that nature is very powerful. And one of the ways I wanted to take it a step further, right, is actually showing who's calling the shot. So in Resurgence, I'm actually showing you like CEOs and directors of the bioweapon divisions and actual scientists and things of this nature. So I think like Cameron shows you the commercialization and the superpower that is Wayland. Romulus shows you what it's like to be a worker, you know, and how hopeless it is to live on these colonies. And then Aliens shows you the actual work that's being done, but also the callousness that's being done. But I took it upon myself to show you the actual face and let you into that Zoom meeting, you know, let you into how they really feeling about these things and some of the under the table things that they're doing to keep things afloat. So that's why I say monsters are super relative, because I got a 15-foot queen alien in the movie as well as the Praetorians and everything else. But there's this one dude that's barking out orders that's getting a lot of people killed. And if you look at it, he's way more dangerous than those Xenomorphs will ever be.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a really great way to put it. And that usually, I'm a big creature feature guy, and the thing that I always loved about the monsters is the fact that like they're wild cards. You know, they're not, like you said, they're pure. They're not intrinsically evil or anything. So you throw them in there and it's like unpredictable, but you always have that human element where it's like, okay, that's where the evil actually is. When you've got someone who is aware of what they're doing and they're still doing it, that makes a difference. It's not natural order dictating them to attack prey just to survive. They're making a conscious decision to treat people like shit and get them killed. So I think that's a really great way to put it. And I think, you know, you're also highlighting why I love looking at Alien Romulus, and Aliens is like its own trilogy, because I absolutely adore those three movies. I adored them all.
Same.
So good, man. There. But yeah, no, I love that. And I guess at the end of the day, you know, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself? Like, you know, just whether it's displays, whether it's creation, whether it's movies, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see myself taking what you see. I would say that this C2E2 showing, this past C2E2 showing, was the best futuristic view of what I'm going to be doing in the next 5 years. just on a bigger scale. Because if the difference between this year and last year, I had a team of 10, 11 people running multiple floors this time, and screenings that's offering things that could be seen, live movie props that could be seen on each floor, or you can meet some of the cast and see some of the xenomorphs and things of that nature. But one of the things that I also want to do, I also want to make sure that I'm able to give people this not just one time a year. I see myself having a big space to really be able to flesh out some things like it has movie studio, have attraction, has workshop for volunteers to come in and things of that nature. So I see me doing a lot of the stuff that you saw this past weekend times 10 million.
Yeah.
Because I work, I work. That's the one thing I know how to do, man. It's just work. But the future is bright. I'm able to provide a lot of opportunities for friends, things of that nature. Also working with different companies that's making some cool stuff as far as like arts and crafts go and cosplay. And then, the partnership with C2E2 is really cool too. So a lot of things are looking up. A lot of things are looking up. And yeah, I also want to make sure that I continue to be able to showcase some of the other artists like Nicole, for killing it, as well as Shine Sharp, that was part of the Hall of Horrors as well. So I also want to be able to open the door for a lot of other people, kind of like Roger Corman back in the day, how he would like make movies and have his friends and everybody work on it, and then they would go out to become legends. But instead of making B movies, just uh, super art house, dark psychological TrisRex style movies. So kind of making my own lane, making my own lane.
Yeah, and I think that's
And
a
I
great
see why it's
way.
the road less traveled.
Yeah.
It's the road less traveled for a reason. I'm just gonna say that. I didn't always have this gray beard.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Roger Corman I think is one of the great examples of just what a good hustle, a good grind can get you when it comes to doing movies. And
Yeah.
there's this company, these film guys out there, a part of Rustic Films. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, they're a couple directors a part of it. They're doing like Daredevil Born Again now, but their motto has always been make movies with friends. And that's something that I even try to
Mhm.
champion. I think that that's like the secret sauce to enjoying doing this shit is when you find a group of people that you click with, friends, and you just create art with them. I feel like that's a win-win
Yeah.
situation every time.
It's beautiful. And that was one of the coolest parts about Resurgence is that a lot of those people that you see in that film, like I've been like Colin, one of the whaling workers that had the chest burster scene, the Mike Cage, that was the kind of like the Hudson Hicks character. I went to college with them. I've known them for like 15 plus years. Like some of those people I've known like at least 10 years or more, or I've been in the cosplay scene with them. So a lot of those people cared about me way before I was making monsters and movies. So it was kind of taking the easy way out. And I was just lucky enough to have like all of these dope ass talented friends that I could just ask to help out. But
Right.
yeah, a lot of those people that you see, man, we go way back, way before I was cosplaying and all of that. So yeah, the making movies with friends, right on. I'm right there with
Hell yeah, I love that. Um, awesome, man. It was really a great pleasure talking with you. I got to catch your screening, got to ask you a couple questions too. I thought that that was an awesome setup. Always looking forward to seeing your display at C2E2. And yeah, thanks for joining me and talking with me on here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I had a great time and I loved the questions. They really made me jog my memory as far as like the inception of how I got here to this resurgence universe. So I appreciate it, man. It's a good time talking movies with people that make movies.
Of course. Awesome. Thank you, man.